America has a train problem. Wow, that's quite the statement. Look at that, another European guy telling Americans how bad their trains are. Let's rewind and add a little nuance. America's commuter railways have a big problem, and thankfully there are good examples both here and abroad for how to improve it. First, let's define commuter rail. For today's video, we're sticking to the United States, so no RER or S-Bahns. Even in the US, a clear definition is hard to come by. For example, PATH is legally classified as a commuter rail. To all you angry commenters who are already rushing to type that PATH is not a commuter rail, thanks for the engagement. Today, I am talking about heavy rail trains that run on standard gauge tracks. They can share tracks with freight trains or Amtrak trains. They are not subways or other forms of rapid transit, they are mainline trains. Basically, think of Metro North, Metra, or Metrolink. I think I'm noticing a trend here. These trains traditionally bring passengers from the suburbs into the center of a city. So what's the issue with commuter rail? Well, it's in the name. This is a map of all the commuter rail systems in the US. I've included a few future branches that are scheduled to open. Now, this is the same map, but only with lines that run all day or at least have some sort of reverse rush service. Now, this map shows lines that run at least on Saturdays. I got too depressed in the process to make a map for lines with Sunday service. It becomes clear that there are many commuter rail lines in this country that emphasize the word commuter. Trains run from the suburbs into downtown in the morning, then they bring commuters back into the suburbs in the afternoon. Some services are especially egregious. The Heritage Corridor in Chicago has 3 trains a day, only on weekdays. The North Star in Minneapolis is even worse, 2 round trips a day. I actually have a video on both of these lines, and in both cases, I really enjoyed riding them despite the terrible schedules, so you should definitely go watch those. If you look at Washington, D.C., there are 5 commuter rail lines in the area. Of these 5, only 1 runs on weekends. Schedules like these work great for this guy, but not so much for this guy, or this guy. Having trains that only serve traditional commuters makes them difficult to use for people traveling for other purposes. And it's noticeable in the numbers. Since the pandemic, and honestly the work from home trends that started even before that, ridership on commuter rail has not recovered much. On most systems that have all-day service or weekend service, that ridership has recovered more substantially. When service is offered at more times, more groups of people will be able to use it. And so many transit advocates are now calling for commuter rail systems to be converted to regional rail. Now, regional rail is a word you hear often if you spend any time on transit YouTube. But what is regional rail? Well, it's kind of used as a buzzword, but basically it just means a rail system that serves different groups of passengers. One important aspect of a regional rail system is that it has service all day, every day. There are great examples of this all over the Northeast. Another important aspect is the possibility for passengers to travel out of the city center or between different cities. This is where the name regional rail comes from, since it connects a region. Surprisingly, a great example of this is Metrolink in Southern California, which actually has some service that avoids Los Angeles altogether. When discussing commuter rail versus regional rail, these same examples usually come up. SEPTA good, VRE bad. The common perception is that the good systems are usually located in the northeastern United States. While this is generally true, I recently stumbled upon a pretty good regional rail system in the last place I ever expected it. This is Salt Lake City in Utah. Utah's commuter rail is called the FrontRunner. It opened in 2008. There's a lot that's surprising about FrontRunner. For one, the Utah state government looks quite different from most states with a good regional rail system. Republicans have a supermajority in both the House and the Senate. I guess it just goes to show that while there may be clear trends, some things do rise above politics. The other surprising thing about the FrontRunner is how well it functions, despite being only one single line. You may look at a single line and ask yourself, how could it ever be useful? Well, let's take a closer look. The FrontRunner runs for 80 miles or 130 kilometers from Provo to Ogden through Salt Lake City. These cities all form a chain called the Wasatch Front, hence the name FrontRunner. This is a population density map of Utah. As you can see, large parts of the state are very sparsely populated. A large concentration of people live along this narrow line, the Wasatch Front. In fact, 81% of Utah's population lives on this line. So even one simple railway line running from north to south is actually able to serve a lot of people. Are the stations useful? Well, there seems to be a fair amount of transit-oriented development at stations. I know that there was a political scandal a few years back, but since the state restructured the transit agency, I believe things have been getting better. I noticed a lot of apartment buildings next to the tracks. However, I think it's best to let a local person comment on things like land use. It's just not my area of expertise. Another thing that's pretty good is the connections to local transit. Passengers can transfer to the track's blue line at Salt Lake Central, to blue and red at Murray Central, or to the green line at North Temple. By the way, I spent a whole day riding the light rail and streetcar here, and that video will be uploaded very soon. Subscribe to Trains Are Awesome so you don't miss it. But what's the best feature of FrontRunner? Its schedules. From Monday to Friday, trains run half-hourly in the mornings and evenings, and hourly in the midday. What's more, service runs from before 4 a.m. to after 1 a.m. That's a frequency on par with many European services. Even better, service runs in consistent patterns every hour, so it's easy to memorize. On Saturdays, trains run hourly. Having a train available all day makes travel easy and reliable. This is particularly great for students, since there are many large universities along the line. In the future, FrontRunner hopes to go to a train every 15 minutes, as well as add several extensions. How is this all possible? Well, FrontRunner trains run on their own tracks. Though the line parallels the existing Union Pacific tracks, FrontRunner trains never share tracks with freight or Amtrak trains. This means that delays on the main line will not interfere with the regional trains. Finally, I like the FrontRunner's fare system. The base fare is $2.50, and for each additional station you travel, you add 60 cents. Very understandable, and if you were to travel the entire line, it would be a little over $12. Very reasonable for such a distance. We've sung FrontRunner's praises for a long time, so it's time to point out some of the negatives. First is the fact that it's unelectrified. In fact, the diesel locomotives used are quite polluting. On a corridor with high frequency, high ridership, and no freight trains, electrification seems like a no-brainer. This might be where the state government becomes a bit of a problem. Second is the elephant in the room, Sunday service. There is no Sunday service. Zero. Zip, zilch, nada. Now, the religious affiliation of most people here in Utah may be a contributing factor to that, but still, it's not like nobody needs to travel on a Sunday. Even a reduced schedule would be better than nothing. Nevertheless, FrontRunner is a great product for American standards. It definitely deserves the title Regional Rail, not Commuter Rail. I like it because it serves as an example that despite politics, despite car culture, despite so many things, when the right decisions are made, trains can be a good product anywhere. Using dedicated tracks was the right decision, and it allows FrontRunner to offer service that railroads in places like Chicago, LA, or DC could learn a lot from. Have you been on FrontRunner? What's the service that surprised you when you learned about it? As always, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.